So we're going to have a look at creating a chord progression next. So Composer allows us to create very musically cohesive chord progressions, and we do not need to have a deep knowledge of music theory to be able to do that. And it does that using kind of preset chord progressions essentially. So we've got a progression here. So you can see we've got key and scale set up here. So let's change this to something different. So let's say we want to do something in a major key. And then we have length here. So we can choose how long this is going to be. So let's say we did 8 bars. You can see we've got an 8-bar progression here. We can choose a time signature. So you've got all the different time signatures. For the most part, it's going to be 4/4. And then we can use this chord progression list here. And you can see we have loads of different things to choose from here. So we could say we wanted something inspirational, for example. See, we have some kind of chord extensions here, like 7th chords, and also some more kind of standard triad-based chords. But they're all separated out into these different categories here. So let's say we wanted a transcendent chord progression. So let's choose this one, and we'll play that. Okay, so that's one way you could work with this. You could go straight through and just choose a chord progression. You can also favorite chord progressions from here as well. So if we come to our favorites, that's going to be in the favorites list. Let's just go back to the beginning. Okay, so that's one way we could work with this. But we can also generate a new chord progression. So this is where it's just going to basically choose at random a chord progression. So then it's up to us to play through and decide whether that's something which is going to spark an idea for us. Is it something that we're going to find inspiring? So I'm actually going to make this a bit shorter because I think it's too long to listen to 8 bars every time. Okay, let's try another one. Bit too diminished that one, so let's get rid of that. You get the picture. So we just go through until we find something which is going to spark an idea. So if we wanted to work in the relative minor, we could push this to A minor, for example, and then we've got chord progressions that are going to be based on the key of A minor. Okay, now from here, we can go in, as I said, and create our own adjustments to these chord progressions. So let's say we wanted to add an extra note here. I want to make this a bit more jazzy, so I'm going to add in this G here, which is going to make this an A minor 7 chord. Okay, and then let's say we wanted to take this note down an octave, for example. Let's add in a B here as well. Okay, this chord is way too high, so let's take this chord down. You can move the notes around. A little bit strange, but you get the picture. Let's try that. Let's add a bass note in. So there you go, that's sounding quite nice. Now I should also say you can go through and change individual velocities and notes here as well. And once we're happy with our MIDI, we can close that from here. So you can see that you have the ability to use this as a traditional piano roll, basically. Let's close that down and we're back on this main kind of arrangement view here. So when we click on an individual chord, first of all, we can hear that chord. More of a kind of vanilla chord version. But what's also cool is that we can go through and create some adjustments here. So first of all, we can actually change the root note of the chord. So let's say we wanted to do E minor instead. We've changed that to E minor. We can change the type from here too. And also importantly, we can change the embellishment. So before I was going in the piano roll and directly putting the notes in. But what's also cool, we can actually add an embellishment here. So let's say we wanted an E minor 7 chord. We can add that in by adding in the flat 7 here. So I could use this to kind of directly go in and change the chord progression. So let's say I wanted to make this D minor 7, and I'll make this A minor 7, and then let's make this F major 7. Let's try that chord progression out. Okay, that sounded quite nice, but what we can also do here is change the inversion as well. So let's try some different inversions here. Let's try that. Okay, let's try that one out. Pretty cool, and you can see that it tells you the chord we have here. So E minor 7 over B, for example. So it's going to update to give you the type of chord that you're playing. So that's another way that you can work with this. You can either use the default chord progressions that it generates for you, or you can go through and click on each individual chord, and you have the ability to make your amendments from this menu too. Now, in addition, what you can do is generate a whole new chord. So it's going to kind of do this within your key that you're working with. Let's try that. Yeah, I think that's working better. That's quite nice. So as well as being able to generate whole chord progressions using AI, you can also generate individual chords that way as well. Now, what's more, you can copy a chord. You see it's now created an additional chord here. We can also change the length of these chords as well. Okay, let's change this chord. Let's go back to E minor 7. Let's try that. Okay, sounded quite nice. Now, what else can we do here? Well, we can actually drag chords around to reorder them, which is pretty cool. So what else can we do from here? Well, we can insert a chord. So if we want to just add in a chord at a certain position and then generate a new chord from there, we can do so using this insert chord option here. And again, we can go through and choose what kind of chord we want, the type of chord, add in any embellishments, and also change the inversion. Okay, so that's going to be part one of our look at adding in chords. So what have we learned in this lesson? Well, if we click on progression here, this is where we can actually generate a chord progression. If we click on chord here, we get some extra settings here that we're going to look at in the next video. But if we click on progression, this is where we can create our kind of harmonic backdrop from which everything else is going to derive its parts. So as I said, when we're on progression here, we can generate a chord progression. And that's where AI is just going to go through and choose different chord progressions, and we can try and find one that's inspiring. We can make sure this is in kind of key we want to work in. So it could be a minor key, it could be a major key. We can choose the length of it here as well, and the time signature. Or we can go through and directly choose chord progressions based on this extensive list here. And we can also favorite chord progressions if there's ones that we keep on coming back to, and they'll appear in the favorites here. Okay, so once we have a chord progression selected, we can either double click, or alternatively, we can use this little edit menu here or edit button to bring us into this piano roll. Now here we can actually move notes around. We can double click to create notes. We can alt drag or option drag to duplicate notes. We can also change the velocity of notes here as well by dragging up and down. I should say we can also solo and mute from here, and we can trash as well. So if you want to start off with a whole new chord progression, you can do so from here as well. Now, once we're in this menu, in addition, we can click on our chords. We can actually do this from within the main view as well. And it gives us this kind of chord settings here. So this is where we can go in and choose exactly the chord we want. So what's the root note going to be? What's the type of chord going to be? And any embellishments. Now, this is where we can add in things like sevenths and ninths and 11ths. And I would again do this by ear, because if you're not familiar with music theory, this might still be quite confusing to you. But let's say we wanted to do a major 7 chord. If that sounds good to you, that could be a good chord to use. That doesn't sound good to me. So this is something you can do by ear, as I said, just to get something which really inspires you and makes you want to make music. So in addition, we can generate a new chord at random. So you can use AI to basically, just have some happy accidents and choose chords for you, like so. You can copy a chord and it's going to duplicate that chord. You can delete a chord as well. You can also insert a chord in a certain position as well. And then you can go through and change the type of chord from there too. And that is how you can go through and add chords in using Lambda Composer. Okay, so that's going to be part 1, as I said, on looking at adding the chords in. We're going to continue looking at our chord settings here in the next video. So I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.